Anthony drives one, deep left center field. Back goes Campana to the wall. It's out of here!
And we are live. How's it going, everybody? It's your guy, Wardy, here, and we're currently on the prowl here in Santa Monica, California, right outside the Bungalow Club. And before I enter the club here and have myself a fine evening before I head back home over the next day or so, I do have to break down this massive Game 3 victory for the New York Metropolitans over the LA Dodgers there in LA by a final score of 6-0. I want to see those W's spam in the chat right here, right now. How we feeling, everybody? Again, Wardy's reporting live here out in LA for the week in direct part because of this Mets series. Attended game 1 and that what was a tremendous extra innings victory for the Mets after Edwin Diaz blew his first blown save of the year after going 13 for 13 previously. Then the Mets lose in a heartbreaking fashion yesterday where they blow it in the 9th inning that we saw. And now today we see Griffin Canning have himself his sharpest start of the year against the LA Dodgers. And this comes after his previous start being his worst of the season against the Chicago White Sox, a bottom feeder. It doesn't need to make sense. All you need to know is that Griffin Canning casually went 6 shutting this one. Jose Castillo's looking like a true southpaw option for this New York Metropolitan bullpen. And Pete Alonso with not one but 2 ding-dongs had all of us, including myself, absolutely electric right from the start of this ball game. How we doing, everybody? Spam those W's as your first time in live on a replay. I apologize to all my OG viewers. I do not have the jingle running today, and that is solely because of the fact that I don't have the jingle set up here in this software that I'm currently using. As you guys can see, currently out of town right now, right over this little hedge thing that they have going on over here. You guys can see the Pier, Santa Monica, Venice Beach, right all there. So that is where Wardy is currently hanging out at for the evening. So if any Mets fans are here in Cali, hit your boy up before I head out of here. We got Brendan. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Let's see, Brennan with the $5 haul says, let's go. Great win on my day off. Ending even better with watching you. So happy to hear that. Thank you so much for the donation as you chime in, Brennan. I appreciate that. Shout out all my Mets fans on the East Coast, especially chiming in late night here. I know this is not fun here, especially staying up this late. But listen, the boys are riding high. This was a big, big victory, a massive Game 3 victory here. And you had so many things cooking for the Mets. Listen, both the Mets and the Dodgers had around the same amount of hits today, right? Maybe the Dodgers had one more with the Pages home run before the ball game ended, but the Mets still won this one by a final score of 6-1. If I said 6-0 earlier, I apologize. That's just because outside of the Pages home run, there was really nothing else to show for the Dodgers this entire ball game. The Mets did a tremendous job from start to finish that we saw in this one. Pete Alonso set the tone early, and in a similar fashion to when Francisco Lindor hit his home run there for the New York Mets that we saw in Game 1 of this series, where the Mets are now 27-0 in the past 27 games where Lindor has hit a bomb. I felt similarly as to what the result was going to be in this ball game once Alonso had that early home run going. So I don't want to waste any time, anybody. Let's get into breaking down this ball game, what transpired in said matchup. Thank you guys so much for the memberships and the donations. Kevin, thank you so much for becoming a new member on the platform. Shout out all my members chiming in live on a replay. I apologize in advance if I miss anyone's comments specifically. Please know it's not purposeful. It's just because I have a very little chat box I get to see while doing this mobile on the prowl here. Again, I'm typically in my normal setup there, but not back on the East Coast yet from the West Coast trip. So until then, we're going to have Wardy on the go the way that we're doing things right now. But I was keeping tabs. I was watching the game all night long. Was at a really, really nice spot there for dinner earlier today and had an absolute blast. And I was watching the Mets game locked in the entire time. And right away, the ball game began in the Mets' favor. And before we get there, Greg with a $5 holla did state the following. I was scared to death of this series. I don't give my Mets enough credit. They're a very good baseball team, capable of beating anyone. They are absolutely capable of beating anyone. And with a victory tomorrow, the Mets will have 2 straight series wins this season against the LA Dodgers, this time both at home at Citi Field and then this time on the road in LA, the way that we're breaking it down right here, right now, everybody. And I want to hear from you guys as well. How hyped up are you after this Game 3 victory? Listen, the boys shut out the I shouldn't say they shut them out. They basically shut out the LA Dodgers today, with the exception of Ryan Stank, unfortunately giving up the 12th home run of the year there for Andy Pages. I mean, the pitching was absolutely grooving. Griffin Canning from start to finish in this one was absolutely nails. And you could tell that Canning had that little extra moxie going on. And I wonder if it had to do with the fact that, you know, he's a little bit of a SoCal guy, right? He played the past number of years for the Angels. And while he was batting practice for the Angels, gave up more home runs than any other eligible starter in the American League last year. That did not stop what we saw in Canning from feeling good, feeling comfortable, even against the LA Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. That changed nothing whatsoever, everybody. So Griffin Canning was absolutely dominant in this one. There were some key moments that we're going to highlight, but let's begin here in the first inning where everything really transpired for this Mets team, because the Mets got the offense rolling early. And it was all thanks to having guys quickly 2-on, no away against Tony Gonsolin. This is the same Tony Gonsolin that the Mets, if I'm not mistaken, scored at least 4 earned runs, if not more, against when they faced him less than 2 weeks ago. Then Gonsolin, in his last start, not even a week ago, gave up 5 earned runs against the New York Yankees. Why? Because Gonsolin is a soft-tossing right-handed bum that the Mets certainly took advantage of. And obviously, I'm half joking as I say that. Nothing personal to Tony and the fam, nothing like that. But Gonsolin just hasn't been the same since coming back from injury. He was once a Cy Young-worthy type candidate of a pitcher a couple years ago for the LA Dodgers, but that has quickly changed there with the velocity going down, the comfortability, and the arsenal not being there. And the Mets ate him up like batting practice yet again, because this ball game begins with the Mets getting their leadoff man on right away. That we've seen Francisco Lindor, but this time it would be by a hit-by-pitch. And then after Lindor gets on with a hit-by-pitch, we would see BLASTS get one that just squeaks through there in the infield to the right side. And then that sets the stage right away for Juan Soto. And Juan Soto gets the party started early for this Mets team that we all saw there with an RBI ground out. That was absolutely tremendous there. And quickly, it's 1-0 New York Mets. So listen, it wasn't a double play. It didn't end the inning. And the boys still had opportunity to succeed, and they would succeed, everybody, because afterwards we would see the polar bear come up. And what does Pete Alonso do? He takes Tony deep, and he goes opposite field, baby. It's high, it's far, and it is gone. A big 2-run shot there, Oppo Taco, for Pete Alonso, and that quickly makes the ball game 3-0 in the Mets' favor. And the best part about this, everybody, is that as this ball game continued on, for Griffin Canning, he didn't have too many jams in this ball game, but there was one specifically right around the 5th inning that he worked out of so beautifully that we saw. We also saw the Mets, obviously, in the 3rd trying to get more things cooking. It did not happen, however, but Canning, again, did such a great job early in the ball game, striking out Shohei Ohtani as well to end the inning there, and one of the, in my opinion, one of the best at-bats of the entire ball game, at least from the pitching perspective for Griffin Canning and this New York Metropolitan rotation. Canning, absolute stud. I can't get over how good he looked today with his arsenal day. And what I love so much about Canning is this is not only a guy that obviously is thriving with the adjustments that he made because of what Jeremy Hefner and Desi Driscoll have recommended him, but it's also a combination of that along with him having the mental fortitude to say, you know what, I understand that I can eat a lot of innings at the major league level, but I've been batting practice. I've not had the success I would otherwise hope as a young starter there, who's only in his late 20s now, if not 30 at this point, and had 170 innings last year, but had north of a 5-year rate to show for it. So he wasn't too happy about that naturally, but he was confident in his ability to make proper adjustments and also put a level of faith in Hef, in Yeagers, in Desi, and everyone in between. And that's led Griffin Canning now to being an absolute stud, and he cruises through this Dodgers lineup today. Again, you would not think that this is the same Dodgers team that has the MVPs of Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani. It does not mean that whatsoever, folks, because when you have Griffin Canning, who looks like he's well on his way to being an all-star this year out of the New York Metropolitan rotation, you find yourself in a great position to say, hey, the Mets are set up for success, and while the Dodgers have been great this year, don't get it twisted whatsoever, they have been. This Mets team is just as good, at least on the regular season basis. And listen, I understand you can give benefit of the doubt to a degree with the Dodgers without Blake Snell, right? The dominant southpaw, without Tyler Glasnow, the dominant right-hander, potentially without the future, and Roki Sasaki all separately on the injured list. The counter to that is the Mets are without Frankie Montas, and I know you're probably giggling as I say that. Frankie Montas, in comparison to Tyler Glasnow or Blake Snell, is kind of like apples and oranges. But with the Mets pitching lab, shouldn't you guys have faith that a guy like Montas could really thrive and is something greatly for this rotation? I feel like I got to have faith, because if the Mets can fix Luis Severino, if the Mets can fix Griffin Canning, if the Mets can make Clay Holmes an all-star caliber starter in his first 2 years of starter since the 2018 season with the Pittsburgh Pirates, I'm going to go on a limb and say that they can probably get something decent out of Frankie Montas, at minimum as an innings eater and at maximum as a top 3 starter for them. Then you added in the Samoan Southpaw and Sean Manaea, who will officially begin a rehab assignment soon, folks. It was announced by Carlos Mendoza, and we're going to break that down more on the channel potentially tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that, folks, but not a guarantee, because we have a separate video dropping early for you guys tomorrow that I definitely want to make sure you guys check out. Please don't miss it. It's a big one regarding a report that came out recently that I think you guys are going to enjoy the discussion on. And yes, we're breaking out more of the discourse of rumor season leading up to the MLB trade deadline right at the end of July 31st to be exact. But hit that like and subscribe on as you guys chime in, folks, for our latest New York Metropolitan post-game show as the Mets take down the LA Dodgers in Game 3 of a 3-game set, this time by a final score that we saw there of 6-1. Headline was the polar bear home runs that we saw, not 1 but 2 bombs. And another thing on the offensive end, which I certainly appreciate, everybody, and I understand Juan Soto didn't have much to show offensively outside the RBI ground out, But what Juan Soto did have was the moxie. Juan Soto had the shuffle. You guys all saw it. I saw it too. Usually I have the highlights running for you guys. So imagine the highlights running right next to me, and I'll show you guys them in our future content. But the Juan Soto shuffle is officially back. He's locked in, and he looks more and more comfortable that we've seen because he entered today's game having an extra base hit in each of his past 5 games, at least with 3 home runs and 2 doubles to be exact, going from the Colorado Rockies series to now the LA Dodgers matchup where he hit a tater yesterday, and the Mets' very unfortunate extra inning Game 2 loss against this Dodger team. But tonight in Game 3, even without Juan Soto doing anything more than the RBI ground out, one, he didn't need to because the Dodgers didn't show up offensively whatsoever. And secondly, Mets offensively, again, they got everything that they needed from outside their captain, Lindor, who, crazy enough, Francisco Lindor, everybody, kind of nuts to see him as frustrated as he was. I know I wasn't the only Mets fan that saw that highlight that you all saw of Lindor there slamming his helmet down that we saw there right down the first baseline after having a lie out there to the left side. Very uncharacteristic for Lindor. You don't really see him have an outburst like that much unless it's playoff time, unless it's really a blown call or something along those lines. But I digress. Getting off the wordy tangent here, everybody. Going back to this New York Metropolitan victory, and this is not a game where I'm going to nitpick them too much on the success or lack thereof with runners in scoring position. They didn't have a lot of hits in this ball game. Obviously, Gonsolin didn't pitch his best baseball, but he also didn't give up a lot of contact to this Mets team either. Outside the bombs that Alonso hit in the beginning and towards the end of this ball game, because as we saw, Alonso hit his second home run of the ball game later on this one in the 8th inning. Why? Because of course he did. The polar bear there with a 440-foot bomb to the left side ate up that meatball middle for breakfast without a problem, everybody. And that extended the Mets' lead 6-0 at the time. We saw Griffin Canning go through 6 shutty like the bulldog that he is. Griffin Canning's final line, folks, 6 innings of 3 hit, 0 earned run baseball, 7 effing strikeouts for Griffin Canning, who's back down to a sub-3 ERA on the season. Jose Castillo, the towering 6'6" lefty who came in there that we saw in the game that I attended, and then it ended up with Jose Butto coming in for him, and thankfully no runs were scored. Yesterday, we saw the Mets not have as much success in their bullpen as they would otherwise hope because everyone's taxed right now. And today, Jose Castillo goes 2 effing shutty for this Mets team out of the bullpen. This is why the Mets gave up on Genesis Cabrera, everybody. This is why when Jose Castillo and his 11-plus ERA was dropped by the Arizona Diamondbacks less than a month ago, David Stearns was salivating at his mouth and said to himself, we can make this man right. We can get him back to being the best reliever he's been in his respective career since the 2018 season. Yes, the 2018 season is the last time that Mr. Jose Castillo was at all an effective reliever at the major league level of any decent sample size whatsoever. And that was also the only season that Jose Castillo has really been effective on any front at the major league level. And what I love so much about Jose Castillo and what's happening with him lately is I'm getting the shades to a degree of Reed Garrett, right? Because the Reed Garrett story, for those that don't know, is a fantastic one. The Mets traded for Reed Garrett under the Billy Epler regime at the 2023 MLB trade deadline while he was a reliever in AAA for the Baltimore Orioles affiliate. And at the time, Reed Garrett, again, had some great minor league numbers, but he had such a meatball of a fastball. The Mets trade for him, and then as we enter the 2024 season, he's working in the lab a bit, and then that's where you really see him deviate away from his four-seam fastball, have heavy splitty usage, get that sweeper working there, all the triple S's that you can think of there, from splitties, sweepers, sinkers, sliders, you name it. A guy like Griffin Canning is going to absolutely thrive with that kind of mix, and we saw him thrive with that kind of mix, everybody. And Reed Garrett now has went from being this mainstay in the minor leagues to a true option at the major league level. And Jose Castillo has now found himself in that category as a true lefty option for this New York Metropolitan team. Now, again, folks, for those just chiming in, the Mets won this one by a final score 6-1. And reporting late night here on the West Coast, Santa Monica, California, hanging out right outside the Bungalow Club here. But I didn't want to bring you guys in because then I'm going to get copyright flagged because all the music they're playing and all that fun stuff. SR, thank you so much for the $5 holla. SR states the following. Player of the game, Soto, 1 for 1 at the the water bottle flip. That is true. And talking about the Soto bottle water flip, let's talk about the Soto personality. That's another thing, everybody. We saw Juan Soto, Luis Angel Acuna, Starling Marte, and a bunch of other Metropolitan players doing their own thing earlier that we saw, just hanging around what looks like they were almost building as if it was a cart. And we saw Acuna was in catcher's gear. So they were just dicking around, having fun today. And that is more of the Juan Soto that we saw at Mets spring training, really, really appreciating, just hanging out, enjoying the vibes, playing loose, playing fun, and not pressing nearly as hard as he was the past number of weeks. Finally, Juan Soto's locking in. He looks more comfortable than he ever has. I think so far this season, we can all agree there. The swings look 10 times better. The swing decisions look 10 times better. And, even yesterday, too, when he was facing Tanner Scott, like, you just see, like, between the head nods and the way that he's having these approach of these at-bats, that he's looking more and more locked in, right? And then you look at the depth of this Mets lineup, too, guys. They're cooking. We're waiting for WardyNYM to do anything. I know he hasn't done much of anything yet, and that will come in due time, obviously, but we're also not going to rag on the kid if he does nothing his first number of games, because that's going to happen. I knew that he would be a strikeout machine to a degree. We're seeing that early on there, but I'm just happy to see Mauricio at the major league level. Mark Vientos, I'm also happy to hear that he does not have a huge, hamstring sprain or anything like that. He's going to be out 2 weeks. Then that should be that, everybody. But, folks, I definitely want to know all your thoughts in the comments down below on the front of what is happening in Metsland as they take down the LA Dodgers here in Game 3 of a 4-game set, this time by a final score here of, yes, that's going to be 6-1. Thank you guys again to everyone that's been chiming in live on a replay. I appreciate you all. Let me go up in the chat. Let me do just some quick shout-outs in here, everybody, and then we will go on from there because I don't want to have this too on this angle for you because I know probably isn't as pleasant to look at. Juliet Hawkins, great member. Thank you so much for chiming in. Grant Lilly, how we doing? Camp, how we doing? Caps, how we doing? Great member. Eric Douglas, great member. Juan Diaz, great member, moderator. David, how we doing? Going up the list here. We got Kevin Flores. We got Presidente. We got Zero Cool, great member. We got Eric Roper in here. We got all you guys chiming in live on a replay. Come on. Kevin Flores. Let's see here. You have a great sleep. Joven, how we doing? Chad O'Neill, how we doing? All you guys, again, make sure to spam those W's in the chat in case you guys haven't already as you chime in for our latest New York Metropolitan post-game show. As, again, the Mets take down the LA Dodgers here by a final score of, yes, that's going to be there 6-1. Now, my closing thoughts in this one, because I'm not going to be too long-winded tonight, everybody, is as follows. I'm obviously very encouraged and happy to see the outcome that we saw tonight for the Mets over LA. I'm more encouraged than anything else that the Mets just dominated in the pitching front. And the notion that, they wouldn't be able to play up beyond the first month of the year as being the best overall pitching staff in baseball. Well, News Buddy, they're not only doing that, but they're doing that and then some. So you got to be really happy if you're a Mets fan right now with the early production you're getting from Canning, from Holmes, from McGill, who, again, shut down the final 16 of 17 batters you saw yesterday or so. And then you look at, obviously, all the other key pieces there in this rotation. Kodai Senga headline, naturally. David Peterson, and then you add in Frankie Montas, then you add in Sean Manaea, and then you add in on the offensive end another Swiss Army knife on the base running, as well as a great defense. And Jose Siri, who I ran into today, I'm in Beverly Hills walking to get coffee earlier this morning with my guy Borna. We were walking back to our place, and Siri was literally right across the street from me there with his girls. So I just went up to him, dapped him up quick, said, "What's up?" Big fan. Asked him how he's feeling. He's like, "Good." He asked me if I was at the game last night. I said, "No, but I was at the game the first night of the series." And I just said, looking forward to you getting back out there. He said he's looking forward to that too. So nice little cordial interaction with Jose Siri. I love that out of any celeb or anyone of status that I would have noticed so far on this trip, I run into Jose Siri out of all people here in Cali. I guess it was just meant to be, everybody. I guess it was. But, folks, I want to thank you all so much for watching live on a replay. That is going to do it for our latest New York Metropolitan postgame show. Like I said, not going to be too long way tonight, as I know, one, it's very late on the East Coast, and secondly, there's a quick turnaround tomorrow, naturally, with the 4:10 game for you guys and 1:10 on the West Coast for your guy Wardy here. Big day tomorrow as well, so I'm looking forward to it all. But again, thank you guys so much for watching the content. Check out our video that'll be dropping tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, before you get set there for Game 4 of the 4-game set against the LA Dodgers. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. This is your guy Wardy signing out. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out, everybody. Have a great one.